Hello, Janksters, and welcome to another edition of the MagicJank podcast. My name is Graham. I go by HamHawks42 on the internet, and I'm joined today by Headology. Headology, how are we doing? Welcome.
Good. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for asking. And we also have HollywoodPizza in the house. How's it going, man?
Hey, Hollywood.
Hey. Hope everybody's doing good out there.
Keeping it cheesy,
Hope y'all
absolutely.
been keeping it cheesy. Yep. Exactly.
Heck yes.
Pepperoni too, or just cheesy?
Ooh, I like a little bit of pepperoni. How about some Supreme? We'll just Supreme it.
Ooh,
get it all
okay.
in there.
Okay, that'll work.
Yeah,
100%.
get it all in there. Yep.
I love it.
Fair.
That's how you do it. Very cool. So today on the podcast, we have a couple of new topics to cover. So going into last week, it was a very exciting time for arena players in general because we got a bunch of new stuff on the platform. And so this is the first pod that we've had where we've had a chance to actually play with said new stuff. We have an entire new format in Timeless, and one of the most kind of, I think it's fair to say, most beloved draft formats of all time has now entered the format in Cons of Tarkir. And so I definitely wanted to touch on that. And the question that I definitely am curious about, and I'm looking forward to, our discussion around it, is I want to know how well it's held up. Because I know a lot of people have said, oh, it was the greatest. And I always wonder how much of that is nostalgia versus how much of it was like actual excellence, In any event. But we'll get into that. But before we do, I want to give a huge shout out and huge thank you to MagicJank.com, the online marketplace where you can buy and sell Magic the Gathering cards as well as products, just whatever you want. We got all kinds of stuff over there. So thank you very much to MagicJank for making this show possible. And if you have a collection that you're looking to liquidate, that's a fine place to list it. And on top of that, right now during the holiday season, MagicJank is running a ton of great deals, including up to 15% off on Quiver products. So if you've ever, seen people rolling up to the LGS with those really swanky, basically like every time I do this pitch, I want to reach for my Quiver. There it is. Thank you. Oh my goodness. Yes.
Gotta love Quiver.
They're so good.
This is one I gave away on stream recently.
Nice.
Oh,
it's
nice.
It's going to get mailed out this week.
Yeah.
But it's gorgeous.
That's fantastic. Yeah, they're awesome. So the larger Quivers can hold like 6 decks or something like that, like EDH decks. It's wild. And it's basically quality luggage for your decks, and they're fantastic. So thank you to Quiver. Actually, Quiver was very generous with Team MagicJank and hooked us up with a couple of Quivers, and I gotta say it was a game changer for me, because it definitely revolutionized kind of how portable my collection was. So definitely get in on that because you're not gonna find a better deal than 15% off, and that's over at MagicJank.com. So very cool. So with that, let's go ahead and dive on into it. So I know for myself, I've been playing a ton of Timeless over the last week, like a ton of it. And so I guess if we don't mind, we can go ahead and just start there and see where the mood takes us. Because, oh my goodness, I fully expected that format. So anyway, if you're not familiar out there, folks at home.
Yeah, talk about Timeless. Tell us
what is
all
Timeless?
about
What the heck are we talking about? Because we're at a point right now where Magic format names are all just kind of generic words, and it's I look because modern, for example,
Forever
is like includes
Eternity.
cards that are like 20
Forever,
years old. So
eternal.
okay, sure.
Limitless.
Yes, exactly.
Unrestricted.
I know. Yeah, we're gonna get
No limit.
Yes, no limit. The format.
Temporally nebulous.
Nebulous. That sounds like a format name. Absolutely. Yeah.
Unlimited.
Ambiguous. Let's just call it what it is, right?
Or you also have like names like Pioneer, Explorer.
Yes. Pioneer and Explorer, which are different. And then Frontier was a thing. Yep. And then Pioneer clearly wasn't completely cribbing off of that, but sure, whatever. Anyway,
the new Frontier.
The new
Frontier, the Revenge. Sorry.
Right. So I love it because Timeless is a very that was a bold choice for the name, I think, because it is actually of the kind of quote unquote eternal formats, although we're at a point where what does that even mean anymore? Of these non-rotating formats, it's the youngest of them, kind of. Anyway, so it hasn't proven itself to be timeless just yet, but I'm very intrigued. What it is on Magic Arena. On Magic Arena, we have a ton of cards. And we've had a ton of cards that have not been legal in a number of formats. We have cards like Brainstorm, Memory Lapse, Lightning Bolt, some of which had some moments in Historic, but they're not currently legal there. We have cards like Demonic Tutor, which is like basically just Historic Brawl, you know, and that's kind of the case for most of these cards. Is like, yes, you can have one in your Historic Brawl deck. How often is that actually going to come up? You know, but they were printed into the Mystical Archives or into the Enchanted Tales or whatever else, you know, supplemental product that needed to be there.
War, artifacts, stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. The Brothers War. What do they call those? The retro artifacts or whatever. Yeah,
retro artifacts.
Yeah, so there was all of these bonus sheets that included
Mystical Archives, right?
The Mystical Archives was the big one. There were some crazy ones.
That's the Demonic Tutor, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's Lightning Strike,
Bolt,
and you know
Swords of Plowshares.
Brainstorm.
Yep, Memory Lapse, all that jazz. Oh yeah, there was some
probably
silly stuff
like
in there.
The most powerful cards are probably the Mystical Archives. I mean, 2 of them are restricted.
Yes. Yeah.
You know,
Channel
one other
and
card
Demonic
that is
Tutor,
restricted is
And Tybalt's Trickery is
the
the
other
other
card's Tybalt's Trickery, which is just like a card that everybody kind of hates.
Yep. And so if you're wondering, wait a minute,
Now
these
you
cards
can play with
hated.
those hated cards and play against them.
Exactly. That's really the bottom line. And so if you're thinking, wait a minute, channel is only restricted, what's banned? The answer to that is nothing. And so as a result, if the card is on the client, you know, if you can get the card in your collection, you can play it in Timeless. And it is exactly as fast-paced, high-powered, and degenerate as you want it to be. You know, the turn 1 Dark Ritual Necropotence, that happens there. I mean, that's a vintage play, and it's happening in Timeless right now.
Why it's called Timeless, right? The match is it's over in the blink of an eye. It really is.
It really is.
No time.
There is no time.
Well, the cool part about that is like one of the worst things about, you know, vintage, right? And legacy was like you could shuffle up, turn 0, they win, and then you're like, well, I have to shuffle these cards again.
Yeah.
So at least Arena does that for you.
That's true. It does help. And the other thing that with Concept Tarkir entering the client, they introduced fetch lands. And they preemptively banned the fetch lands in Historic. So Timeless is basically the only place, other than Historic Brawl. Yeah, but so you can, in fact, play the fetch lands there. And it is neat to have them. I gotta say, like, I didn't really appreciate just how cool it is to crack a fetch land and go, you know, shock something in and just have your first 3 turns just, like, all set. Like, that feels really good, I gotta be honest.
So good.
Yeah. And when you're going up against somebody who, you know, fetch, shock, Dragon Rage Channeler, Mishra's Bauble, it's like, oh, well, okay, that's, you know, what
in real life that would take a little bit of time too, you know, between like fetching, shocking, and then remember your triggers, doing like all this stuff. Like, I think
I've gone up against it a couple times. Yeah.
In all honesty, Timeless is cool because it really does give people something that people want, which is everybody wants all the formats on Arena. Like, let's be honest. Everybody just wants Legacy, Vintage, Modern. We all wish that it was on Arena. The smoothness of Arena, the way it looks, the way it feels, is obviously way better than, like, MTGO and, you know, kind of like some other alternatives, whatever, right? Like,
sure.
At the end of the day, I think that Timeless really fills that void of just, like, having this insanely powerful format where you are able to play Legacy, you are able to play Vintage, you're just able to do whatever you want, and you also don't have to worry about there being some like ridiculously huge ban lists, because nothing's banned, it's just that some of these cards are getting restricted. That's pretty much it. So that way you don't have to worry about like, oh, one deck is like too powerful. It essentially is gonna turn into Vintage, right? Because if they print some other stuff that's too powerful, maybe they print something that makes another card too powerful, then you could restrict that card, and then that's it. That strategy is a lot less potent or whatever. So I don't know. I think it's cool. Like I said, I think it definitely fills a void that everybody wants, which is we all want these cards on Arena. Yeah. And it's cool to have a format now where we're able to play cards like Swords, Bolt, cards that I think should be unbanned, because the problem with Historic is that we keep like pre-banning everything. Instead, it's like, just let it live, see what happens, unban some cards.
Yeah,
because this is Timeless, and this is what everybody wants, though, right? Like, turn 1 Ragavan, who cares? You've got like 14 answers to it. Doesn't matter. You're just like, kill it.
Yeah, if I turn
Mantis,
one
yeah.
Ragavan, you
cares?
turn one
Yeah.
Bolt or Fatal Push, and we
Yeah,
go on
swords.
with our lives. Like and that's exactly
Yeah,
what
doesn't matter. Yep.
that's exactly how Timeless is playing. You know,
Or
it's doing
Thoughtseize.
it
Oh, you
feels
want to try to
very
combo? Here's a Thoughtseize. You just lose the game because you kept a loose hand, and
yep. Yeah,
thought that you
Thoughtseize
could get
Inquisition of
there. And
Kozilek, that's absolutely out here. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
And
it's
it
keeping itself in check, you know.
yeah, and the thing is, right now with Historic, I feel like they have this massive ban list to try to curate the experience. But I don't know about you, man, but like when I'm out there, I see the Shockland come down Delighted Halfling on 1 into Stone Rain on 2 all the time. And it's just like, if that's allowed,
Oh, that sounds
if
so
that's
good.
okay,
That sounds
like,
so good. I'm
why
completely
isn't Blood
okay with
Moon?
that.
Like, why did, like, come
Yeah,
on. Like, I don't
completely
get
okay
it.
with all that. Yeah,
You know,
let's go.
horrid.
Bring it.
It is.
I'm
It's
sorry.
it's wretched. It's really the worst. Yeah, and as a result, like I
love it.
find myself over the last few months, over the last few years, I've been trying to get into Historic and just to try to be a well-rounded arena player, and I have hated the gameplay. Like I've really disliked the way that Historic plays. And my expectation going into Timeless was I'll try it for a day or two. I'll put together a couple of brews, see how fast we can pull some crazy combos. You know, did I want to try to pull off the Dark Ritual turn 2 Gristlebrand reanimation? Of course I did. Have I done it? Yes. Is it worth it? Not really, oddly enough. But anyway, that's another story for another day. But, you know, like I kind of figured I'd play with it a little bit. And then I would just end up going back to standard because I fully expected that like the honeymoon period with this format would like dry up really fast. I fully expected there would be a couple of like insane busted combos or a couple of insane busted cards that were the only game in town and everything else would get overshadowed. And that's all you'd see and it would totally suck. It was my expectation.
No,
but the
there's like
truth
40
is,
broken cards.
yeah, but the reality is I find there is a class of card that stands up above the rest. But there are a lot of cards in that category, and a lot of them are banned in Historic. But the moment you put them all together in Timeless, and you don't have the alchemy rebalances to contend with, it feels very dynamic. There's a lot of great interaction, a lot of great gameplay. The number of times that I've been going into turn 3 with the thought of, okay, if I draw one of these two things, I win. If I don't, I lose. And that's it, you know, because both board states are at parity, you know, and it really comes down to who can get the edge. You know, it's a high power wrestling match where it's like arm wrestling match, who can get over the top first
Vintage,
to bring it down.
Exactly,
you know,
Is it a
what those
slugfest or is it
formats are like.
just like, is there skill or is it just like, do I draw this one card?
there's 100% skill, but a lot of the skill comes down to sequencing your lands, understanding watching your life total, your opponent's untapped mana, understanding what spells they might have. It's a shocking amount of skill, but the thing is, it's fewer decision points, you know, and you don't get as many decisions because the game is over significantly faster. But if you play the wrong land even once, you're dead and the game's over. And it's really cool. I really enjoy that. Also, the number of times that I have managed to kill people, simply because they necropotence down to like 1 while I have an Eidolon of the Great Rebels on board. It's hilarious. I've watched people do that. It's like, do you
That
guys
seems
know
like
how this?
it's on them.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. No, necro responsibly, everybody.
That
like,
sounds nice. Yeah.
a lot
That
of people out there.
sounds pretty good
Well,
there.
necropotence is, well, the name is kind of fitting, right? It is a very potent card. It's super powerful, but you need to be responsible with how you use it. If you necro too hard, you're gonna lose. It's a format with lightning bolt in it. You know, like, that's a thing. And I've gotten a couple people with that. It's great. I've also found certain cards that have been good overperform. Like Bone Crusher Giant in that format is insane.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
I've
unexpected.
noticed
That's
that
really
Bone
cool.
Crusher gets played a lot.
That's been my experience.
It's fair. I think that like modern Magic nowadays, you know, it's more mid-rangey. It's not just like, oh, I win the game now. There are I win the game buttons, but
Oh, totally.
they're more so like it's like Oko. Like Oko doesn't end the game today, but Oko is gonna end it in like turn 10
Yep.
when you realize that you should have given up when like a turn or two after it had resolved.
Right.
And right, it's like very like you're right. It is like a weird arm wrestling, like kind of like just a mid-range match, and I think that's it. Definitely proves a lot of points all the time of like why do we ban a lot of cards when we should kind of let everything go. It kind of reminds me of like when Wilds of Eldraine was in standard, or excuse me, Throne of Eldraine.
Throne of Eldraine. Yeah, the OG.
Was
Yeah,
in standard, yeah, original. and the ban list was like huge. It's like, oh, here's like 10 or 12 cards that are banned, and it's
Mhm.
like, why don't we just like unban them all? If we
Well,
unban them all, that's like 4 or 5 decks by itself.
yeah, it makes
And then
sense
there's
to like
like,
if a format's miserable, you do want to ban it. But
Sure.
then you wait if the once it rotates or once the new whatever new thing occurs, then you can unban everything and then see what needs to be banned anew because there's been refreshers and new things added.
yeah, things
Um,
leave, make decks worse. Like
yeah,
the best
Mhm.
yeah.
example is why did Omnath need to stay banned when Fabled Passage was gone? The egregious card for Omnath was the fact that there was a fetch land in Standard. So without that fetch land, it makes it a lot harder for you. You have to play some bad cards to kind of make Omnath good. And at that point, your deck probably sucks. It's kind of like the Hinata issue, where like they banned. I guess they didn't ban anything out of Hinata, right?
I
No, they
don't
didn't ban anything
think
out of
so.
Hinata, but
But
funnily
that
enough,
deck got a
Hinata is
lot
still
worse.
standard legal. But Magma Opus rotated.
Yeah, yeah. Magma
And as
Opus.
a
Yeah, Magma
result,
Opus
that
was
that
gone. Yeah,
card just disappeared.
yep.
Like no one. I have not seen a Hinata in
And that's
standard
like a good
Yeah.
example of
since
like
that
what
rotation. Yeah.
Headology's saying, where like a lot of people were calling for Hinata to be banned,
Mm-hmm.
and all it really took was like that card leaving.
Yeah.
Once Opus was gone,
Yeah.
then it just
Well,
like doesn't matter.
it's
And
yeah, and I do think that you definitely want to ban the misery.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah, yeah.
You just then you can refresh and see what the new cards will do because if you keep it banned when so many new cards are being added and changing up all of the not only the metas but also the synergies and all the things like that, then you're sort of denying an opportunity if you just like keep you know you're denying yourself an opportunity to see what the game can do in new ways once you
add in like
how
all
best
these
to
new
phrase it
cards.
in yeah in new ways once you have refreshed the palette, I suppose I want to say.
Yes. That's exactly it.
um like you've now set it up so that there may be answers to things that weren't there before. So you
Mm-hmm.
might as well try it out again. Now, there are some things though that I don't think should ever be like unrestricted or unbanned.
Sure.
But and those are usually pretty obvious. But things like Jace
Mm-hmm.
the Mind Sculptor, which was banned for a while, would never be banned at this point, right?
No.
Yeah, like that
And
card,
due to
like
not
Oko
only the
is like
power creep, but
the
also
egregious
just
one.
like you said, certain things that enable certain combos that
Mm-hmm.
don't have an answer within their specific time frame, right? The new cards may alter that, and so we may need to reevaluate.
Mm.
But palette cleansing, that's what I wanted. Yay.
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. Well, and the one that I mean, okay, I don't play modern. So I need to own up to the fact that I have played modern now. Thank you, Hollywood, for that, because that was really fun. But I don't
Yay. Are the
actively
tournaments running again, by the way?
uh
Is
I
the
believe
bug
we'll have
fixed?
more updates on that. Yeah.
What's
Oh,
up?
sorry.
No, you're good.
I'm just
Yeah.
excited for Hollywood's tournaments to run again
I mean,
after the bug
at this
fixed.
point, yeah, the prognosis for the future is looking good. I don't
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
steal any
things are
thunder,
definitely
but
looking good. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm still
Yay.
testing all the games and stuff, so I'm just trying to make sure that everything works good before
Yeah.
we go into it. But there will be some announcements here pretty soon on it, though.
Heck yeah.
Within the
Quick
next, maybe by the time this podcast comes out, there probably will be an announcement.
possibly. Yeah.
But we'll see.
Very cool. Because yeah, like a little sidebar, like a little tangent apropos of nothing, a little bit of news for folks. There's been a direct challenge bug on Arena that has really kind of kicked the whole social engagement on Arena in the teeth really freaking hard. That's been a problem for a couple of months now, and the Arena team last week stated that they had fixed it. They believe they had fixed it. They'd fixed something, but there may be other issues. Let us know if something happens. It was one of those where they're like, we did something. We hope it works. But at the same time, the issue was only happening with like a third of direct challenges, and so it was like sporadic. The number of times over the last couple of months I've got DMs from somebody being like, I got a direct challenge to work, they fixed it. Like, calm down, like, well, I don't know, but I know there have been a couple of events that have fired over the last few days that have been successful, and I did do a challenge stream, what I call Fight Me Friday, on my stream on Friday. and I had 49 battles with various viewers, and we didn't see the bug once. So
Nice.
yeah, things are, and that was the first time in
Tentatively,
months when
yay.
that had happened. So yeah, it's looking good. It was happening
Yeah,
at least
fingers
around a
crossed.
third of the time. So the
At
fact that it
this
didn't
point,
happen at all in almost
at
50
this point, it's
matches.
fingers crossed. Yeah,
Yes.
all I can say is they at least will be back next month. So just
Yeah,
be
we're
on the
eager
lookout for that.
for.
Awesome.
We'll have some announcements pretty soon on it. So
I'm
yeah,
so excited. You have no idea.
yeah.
I can't. I
So those
seriously. I've
tournaments
been.
introduced you, Ham. Those introduced you to Modern. Sorry, I just wanted to be
Oh, no, you're
excited
good.
for Hollywood.
So actually, the way that I got introduced to Modern was actually in Vegas. So Hollywood and I actually were part of a crew that shared an Airbnb in Vegas, and he brought a couple of Modern decks, and it was a Boros Burn deck and a Dimir Reanimator deck. And I gotta say, there's something about a turn 2 Arcana Cruelty that, like, oof, there's nothing quite like it. Like, it feels real good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, well, and to be fair too, the turn 3 Lightning Helix for lethal is also pretty darn sweet. So, in any event, it was a lot of fun, and those decks matched up well against each other. And in 20 minutes, we could play a dozen games. It was awesome. So,
Yeah, it's kind of like timeless in a way.
Kinda.
That's what
It
people
felt
like. You know, people.
Mm-hmm.
We all love powerful Magic. That's why powerful cards get printed. That's why power creep is a thing.
Right.
Over the last however many years, people just like it, and I mean, it makes sense. Timeless makes sense. It really does. I think it's here to stay. I think it's going to push historic out. I think historic may eventually just not be a thing because it's historic and alchemy are now their own thing.
Yep.
Right? Like they're now okay, this is that tree. That tree is alchemy historic, that's its own thing, and then here is paper magic formats with timeless.
Yeah.
And maybe eventually they put the other paper formats on, like I keep saying, like because all those cards were coded onto Arena before for like a Chaos Draft or whatever they did.
A lot of them have been. Yeah.
Like Black Lotus and the Moxes and stuff. I think like some of the duels and stuff.
Well, they're all coded on there from Oracle the Alpha, but I know that they did an event when Theros Beyond Death dropped, where it was pre-constructed decks and like they included Black Lotus and some things like that. So they have them in the database, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think. I mean, it's they could give it to us if they wanted, but obviously that's all reserved for something special. So.
Yeah.
And whenever it all comes on, it's going to be meaningful.
And the thing that I want to say to folks out there who may think, okay, that's fine and good for people who enjoy that, but I don't think I would enjoy that. Right now in paper, if you want to play incredibly high-powered Magic, it's going to cost you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. Like, it just is. Or you have to proxy it, and there's a whole lot of work involved with that. You know, no matter what, if you want to engage with that in paper, it is an arduous and potentially expensive proposition. It just is. Unless you are fortunate enough to know somebody or have a very, generous player at your local game store who's willing to let you borrow a deck. You know, unless you're in that kind of a situation, the reality is it is accessing Legacy and even Modern to a degree is difficult. It just is.
Yeah, card accessibility in real life is actually a real thing. Like when you go, that's why people don't realize how different metagame is in real life and metagame is online. Metagame online, it's a lot easier to see all of the best decks over and over again online because they're a lot easily accessible. Whereas real life, okay, there's the guy that plays Burn. Well, why does he play Burn? Well, can't really afford another modern deck because another modern deck's like $800 to $1,200. It's a car, right?
No, and I'm right there with you.
It's like a Craigslist car.
Yeah, no, and Burn,
like whatever.
Burn
right? Like if we're gonna put it in that perspective, right?
100%.
It's like an actual item that like an adult needs, right? Like compared to some pieces of cardboard.
Burn's a great example because if I were to roll up to a Modern tournament, that's exactly the deck I would bring. Is it the deck I want to be playing? No, but I have 4 lava spikes, so I'll figure it out. You know.
Yeah, and gobble guides are like $1, so
yeah, exactly. I'll figure it out. Yeah, I can spend $100 filling the gas, and I got a deck.
Yeah, yeah, that deck's like $200 to build nowadays. So I mean, that alone is a reason why you'll see more of those decks.
Sure.
And a lot of people cling on to these old strategies. Like, there's a lot more that goes on in real life when compared to online. You know.
Yeah, but and when it comes to Timeless specifically, the reason that I say all that is you may not have experience playing in these older, high-powered formats. I know I certainly didn't. But now, and I assumed, honestly, I genuinely assumed that I would not like the gameplay experience of Timeless. But man, I honestly, this past week, I've had a blast. I can't stop. I've done red deck wins in Timeless. I've done this like really bad Martyr Reanimator thing in Timeless. It's genuinely bad, but a turn 2 Agent of Treachery is possible with it, and it's absurd. Yeah, it's not nice. I'm not nice. That deck is not nice. That one should stay on the ban list for the record. Agent of Treachery is not okay. It's just not okay.
Is there creativity? Do people even play creativity? Like, is it even? It sounds like it's
I haven't
too
faced
slow,
creativity
right?
yet in Timeless. No.
Yeah, it's probably like too slow.
Yeah, but the one that I'm doing right now is Hammer Time, and it works. Like Hammer Time absolutely works in Timeless, and I'm very proud of my build. Yeah, it's Boros with a black splash for the Calisel sword, and the number of times that like my opponent has finally put defenses up and thought, okay, I'm good, only to have me like fling the 12-11 Ragavan at their face. Oh, it's so satisfying. I tell you what, man.
Mahogany Scamp is a very mean card. I've been playing this Gruul Pump deck in Standard. I know you play that card too,
I mean,
and
yeah.
you can just get it, like you just swing in, you're like, oh, it's just a 3/1, and they're like, I take it, and you're like, giant growth, monstrous rage or whatever it's called, and then they're just
become immense.
It's like, all right, you take
now
like
with
24.
cons.
Yeah. Earlier today, actually, when I was playing the Hammer Time deck, I had one where I attacked somebody with a Giver of Runes. I had a Sigarda's Aid and 2 mana open, and they were just like, "Oh, it's just 1 damage. I'll take it." Hammer. Like,
Like
all of a sudden, like, no, that's 21 damage. I win.
You were rude.
I am rude. I'm the worst. Yes. But the best part is, most of the degenerate nonsense that I'm doing, I keep using that word, with the exception of the 4 of Ragavans, I believe that entire deck is legal and historic. Except I do have 4 fetch lands, so okay, I guess there's that. But in any event, that deck could map to historic very, very well, but it seems like in Timeless, it just works better. Or like I've had much more luck and much more consistently doing Hammer Time in Timeless for some reason. I don't know why exactly. I think probably mana consistency is a huge part
Yeah, I
of
was
it.
wondering. So questions. Obviously, the mana consistency from the fetches, but have you found that the meta isn't as prepared for it, or that there aren't as many answers, or that people don't expect the deck?
That's probably a big part of it. Yeah, I think people are confused. The number of times that somebody's hit me with an Inquisition of Kozilek or a Thoughtseize, and then there's been a very long pause as they try to figure out what the heck to dump.
Like, what is happening?
Wait a minute. There isn't a Bowmasters here. There isn't a Ragavan here. What am I supposed to grab? Yeah, that is fun.
Yeah,
it's like fighter class. Why would you run fighter class? Like, I'm gonna teach you.
Yeah, because if you're not if you're not aware of what the deck does, you don't know what to take out of that hand. You don't know what to prepare for. You don't know how to structure your lines such that you have the best chance against it.
It's true.
But
yeah, and I think a lot of people also forget that Sigarda's Aid gives flash to your equipment, which is like, that's such an important detail. You know, but yeah,
just don't read the cards, man. Like the Cacophony Scamp, once again, like there's so many people that don't read it, and then all of a sudden they're like, they take the damage and then they die, and then you can tell once the game's like ending, they're like reading it, and it's like, yeah, that card like kills you, like
that card if it connects, you're dead. Exactly. And I've taught a lot of people how that works over the past week, I gotta tell you, and I've been having a ton of fun. And but Headology, to your point, right now people aren't prepared for it. If this takes off, if more people decide to bring this style of deck, people will bring, 1 mana artifact destruction all of a sudden.
Yeah, the meta will adjust.
They'll adjust, exactly. And there are answers. There are plenty of answers. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Swords.
you said you've seen. Can you give us an example? You said the decks that you're seeing are really varied. Can you give us like some ideas of like different kinds of decks that are out there right now in Timeless?
Absolutely. So I've seen a lot of red. You have folks running the mono red package because you have lightning bolt, you have Eidolon of the Great Revel, Drag. Yeah, no, it is what it is, right? Yeah, when you can deal 20 damage for like 4 mana, you're gonna do that.
RDW.
Right? Yeah, it's pretty good. And it does win. The name is fitting. So the other thing is anything that can abuse Mishra's Bauble it has become incredibly potent.
Let's
that
go.
card
We can bring back Luris. I love it.
Luris companions are also very common. Yeah, in my Hammer Time build, I run a Luris companion, and there's no reason not to. Honestly, it's kind of silly.
So good.
Yeah.
I love it. Yes.
It's so good.
It's
So good. So
See, it
there's
just sounds like such a nice format.
you're gonna dig it.
Good,
Yeah.
good classic Magic.
Honestly, the decks that I've seen primarily right now tend to gravitate towards black and red. And there's a lot of Dragon Rage Channeler.
Okay.
There's a lot of Orcish Bowmaster. The handful of times that Bone Crusher Giant has like popped up, I've got like I've had to stand up and take notice. I feel like I can deal with just about anything else. That one always gives me trouble. Because a 4/3 in that format is gigantic, and 2 damage kills everything. So yeah, it's pretty gnarly. And on top of that, a lot of the removal that people are packing are your Lightning Bolts, your Unholy Heats, those kind of things, and your Bone Crusher Giants, and those don't kill the giant. So that is just a little hot tip. That one is very, very good.
2
The
damage
other one,
that doesn't get killed on the way back down. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And Treasure Cruise is also legal now because of cons. And so
I've seen
you
Treasure Cruise Beanstalk
banned.
decks. Like
Yep.
like if you needed to draw a 4th card for 1 blue mana,
just draw all of
imagine
all the cards.
imagine having a card better than Ancestral Recall.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just imagine a world where you're just like, oh, I
So
guess
gross.
Well, and
Like,
it's
one
easy to
blue
think.
Take your
draw
time
4.
in Treasure Cruise and Tasigur, right? Are they
is
all
Tasigur
now
on the-
available?
Yeah, you have Tasigur now because of
Yeah.
Oh dang, I hadn't even thought of that.
Ermag Angler.
Yeah, Angler
Or no,
and
not
Tasigur. That whole
Ermag, maybe,
cons
right?
like standard.
Oh no,
deck.
Tasigur was Fate Reforged. I don't think we have Tasigur
Tassigur's
on.
Fate Reforged.
Oh, Tassigur's
yeah,
Fate, right?
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
No, so
Yeah.
hopefully soon. but
Ermag
not
Angler
yet.
is
Yeah.
also Fate.
They'll
Yeah.
have it
Yep.
soon.
Yeah.
It'll come soon. Therefore,
Well, I'm sure we'll get it. Yeah, I'm sure he'll
Yeah.
be here. Yeah. So, but yeah, so a lot of the decks right now are leaning, black and red. I have seen people trying to make mill work. I haven't been too impressed. I also have seen elf ball decks, because I think people gravitate towards that.
Yeah,
But they
elves
seem
can be
like
really
tier 2 at
powerful, I
best,
think.
honestly. I haven't seen the elf deck really pop off. And be just because there's so much cheap removal right now.
I
The
think a
Rakdos
Leyline
decks
of
and
Abundance
whatnot.
Kinnan deck, I think would be better, Ham. I
Which
think
one?
that's really like a Leyline of Abundance Kinnan deck. I remember being able to like turn 2 Ulamog or like
Yeah.
turn 3 Ulamog, whatever it is, just being able to just like wipe out their lands. Because you can get if you like double Leyline, play a Land War Elf, and then play Kinnan, you can make like a ridiculous amount of mana.
And that deck could
then
have
play
the cheeky
Nissa
1
on
of
top
channel
of
and
that.
actually make it work. So
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, you can
Yep.
play the 1/0 channel. Yep.
hmm
All right,
Yeah.
that's it, Ham.
I think you
got
might
me
be onto
hooked.
something there,
That's
honestly.
it.
And I don't think a
That's
lot
it.
of people
you're
are.
gonna craft that one
Timeless.
first.
I mean,
Yep, we're playing
I think
Timeless.
that might have to happen. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm like, I like where your head's at. Yeah,
Yeah, you
I
should
have
play a
seen.
deck like that with like Kratos Hoofs and Ulamogs, and
Totally.
because you would just make a bunch of mana dorks, and then all of a sudden you'd be like, oh, I guess I'll finale Devastation for 20,
That'll do
and
it.
then yeah, everyone's just dead.
That's that.
Well, everyone as in my one opponent.
Yeah, you're one
Sorry,
opponent.
I used
You'll
to,
have enough damage where you
Arena
could have
doesn't
taken
have
out a low commander
multiple
pod,
yet.
but no, you're gonna.
Yeah, enough damage to take out a commander pod.
Indeed. Yes. But yeah, so I've seen people going with, trying to make elves and goblins and those kind of things work. I wouldn't be surprised if, some variant of goblins with Muxus might be doable, but I haven't really seen that step up yet. And I also fully expect control decks will become more popular as the meta kind of solidifies. Like, once there is a known meta, then those more controlling, more reactive decks, I'll know what to bring to the party.
Prepare for, and how to play.
Exactly. So
Or
I think
it could just be like a niche
yeah.
deck, right, where maybe it's just a deck that you hope you bring enough of the right answers to whatever
True.
everyone's playing. Because I think that's definitely like if we look at like modern Magic, like mid range is in every single format.
Mhm.
So aggro really has to push one way or another. Control really has to push one way or another. And it's going to be interesting to see if you're right. If in the Timeless, Control ends up actually being a lot better than it is in other formats because
It
of
could be.
like the wild westery that
Yeah.
exists pretty much in the format right now.
Yeah. Well, I know with an is it kind of control shell, you have things like you can get Dragon Rage Channeler, again, Mishra's Baubles in the mix. You have Treasure Cruise, you have Lightning Bolt, Brainstorm.
I'm surprised we haven't seen the Discover deck. The Discover deck can win on like turn 3, right? So the deck that just got banned.
Not a Pioneer, the one that got banned out of Pioneer. I mean,
Yeah, the one that got banned out of Pioneer. I mean, you can play that in Timeless.
That was the appraiser, right? That got.
Geological
Yeah.
Appraiser was
Yep.
got hit.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
you just
tied
turn
for,
3
like,
people.
I think it's tied for the 3rd fastest ban in Magic history or something like that.
Yeah, that was pretty sick.
Mm-hmm.
That was the one
I'm-
Ali Eldrazi was playing, right?
Probably. That's
Yeah.
that sounds like a deck you'd enjoy. Yeah. Yeah. No, there were a lot of folks running that one out. And the just I play a 4-drop, and then before you know it, I just have lethal on board. Yeah, I can see why that's not a great play experience. So, fair enough.
Might
Yeah.
still be too
Turn
slow
3 too.
for the timeless format, though.
I think so. You know, like there are the turns. There are some situations when, yeah, if you find a dark ritual or some other kind of accelerant, maybe it could pop off. But it sounds too fringe. You know, trying to rely on a 4-drop to resolve is going to be tricky. Not impossible. There's some folks out there just doing the good work, making sneak attack a thing, and I really respect that. But yeah, it's tricky because a lot of things are super low to the ground. Like 1 and 2 mana
Apart
is
from
where it's
the
at.
like your hammer,
Mhm.
white doesn't seem to be heavily represented, and apart from that elf ball stuff, the green doesn't seem to be heavily represented. Is that going to be something that you think adjusts down the line, or do you just think they're weaker overall?
You know, I think that's going to adjust. I think there will be, you know, I'm sure Azorius is going to step up. I have no doubt, because we have things like Spell Pierce. We have things like Swords to Plowshares. I mean, those answers exist. Those you know, those super efficient. Also, like Stern Scolding is one that is like
That's a good
shockingly
for this
good.
format then.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those where it's like it hits Bowmaster, it hits Ragavan, it hits DRC. I mean, it hits almost every creature in the format, and it costs 1 blue. Like, that seems really stinking good. You know, so things like that I think are gonna step up, and so you're gonna see the control decks that do end up kind of rising to the top, which I fully expect, but we're not seeing them yet, are going to be leaning into cards like this. You know, and who knows? It might end up being. I think Dimir actually could be, just completely stupid with that kind of counterplay alongside Orcish Bowmasters, maybe even Fairy Mastermind, Liliana. Like that seems to me like it could have the heat to make it work. Maybe more of a tempo plan, but I don't know. And the other one that I haven't seen anybody really try, but I think could be really good, is the Sleep Cursed Fairy. You know,
the tapped one that is tapped and untaps the stun counters. Yeah.
Yep. This is one that I have eaten so much crow on, because when Wilds of Eldraine got released, I was on, I believe, this very podcast saying this card is doo-doo. I think it's absolutely unplayable. You don't even get to play with it for 3 turns. You have to invest so much mana into it. Oh, awful. How could you possibly? And then sure enough, before I know it, I'm getting pounded down, and I'm at, you know, I'm in standard going into turn 5 at 6 life. And they're like, these damn fairies, they're everywhere. Yeah. Yeah. And the first time somebody hit me with a spell stutter on turn 2 with one of these down, or the first time a fairy fencing just completely blew me out. It's like,
the Thoughtseize hits you.
Yep. Yeah. The ego drain. Yeah. Like that's honestly. So I wouldn't be surprised. And this is a 3-power flyer with ward for 1. Yeah. You kind of put it on suspend.
It's the
as
ward
it were.
2 that gets it too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, if it didn't have ward 2, I don't think it would work. But
no, no.
It dodges the early removal so cleanly. Yeah. So I'm kind of surprised I haven't seen more of this in Timeless, because all the parts are there.
Good things about it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's all there. I mean, if you're on the play by turn 2, you could be, you know, untapping this thing and blocking Ragavans or whatever. I think there's something here, and I don't know. We'll see. And maybe I just need to try to put that together, because I feel like
limited. I don't know about Unconstructed, so
Sure.
I can't weigh in on that, but I do love the fact that it can untap itself later too, to avoid the like exile target tap creature, etc. So forth, right? So,
that's the best, when somebody drops a Wandering Emperor targeting it, and like, haha, like, are you gonna pay the word? Yes, I do. Well, in response, I'm gonna pay 2 and untap it. Like, like, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Honestly, like that right there, the fact that it gives you a place to sink your mana that is meaningful, you know, in those kind of tempo decks where you're going to be keeping your mana
Vigilance
open,
was always nice, because you could block on the way back.
Heck yeah. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, but in any event, Timeless, believe it or not, if you, it doesn't sound like your cup of tea, but you've been playing Arena for a long time and you have a decent collection and you might be able to put one of these decks together, give it a shot. Like, there's no harm in it, and I have been delighted and just absolutely amazed at how much fun it's been.
Yeah, I mean, as long as I don't care about my rank, I'm perfectly fine with that.
There you go.
And getting my face caved in by people who actually understand the format we're good. Yeah.
Well,
Cool.
you'll learn quickly, I'm sure. Yeah, you pick it up pretty quick. Yeah. Yeah, when somebody drops double baubles, like Mishra's bauble is one that I was amazed. Absolutely. This card is 10 times better than I thought it was, and I thought it was good anyway.
Always been nuts.
Yeah. Like cycling 0 with additional information. Yeah, it seems good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, remember Gataxian Probe.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Like that is not even gonna get you an extra. It's just like
yeah. It's
anyway.
banned everywhere just because it's a free spell, basically. Free spell
Yeah,
that plays
information
itself.
is so important too.
Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, and I think that's the other thing. A lot of people are running hand hate. That's the one thing I've noticed. Is there are plenty of decks running 4 Thoughtseize for Inquisition of Kozilek. That is absolutely a thing. And I think a big part of it is that information, just to know, like, okay, when are my threats going to be safe?
Information or the chance to just they have a game plan that they've already worked out in their head when they keep their opening hand, and so even if you fail to disrupt exactly the the best things that they're doing, you still have still that minor slight tilt that you have as a player when you're like, here was my plan, and then they take that piece out of it, and you're like, God damn it.
Yep. The number,
so there's a little bit of a moral. So not only do you get the information out of on their hand, so you have full information at that point, but you also get a little bit of a spirit crush effect. It's just demoralizing.
Adds a little bit of salt to the game experience for sure. Yeah, it's something else. That's the other thing too, though, and I think one of the big things that Timeless has really reinforced for me is mulligans. Your mulligan decision. It is the most important decision you can make in any game of Magic ever, period. And it just is. And in Timeless, it really, it takes that to the next level. You know, if you keep a hand that is going to be great if you draw X, you're probably going to lose. Unless they hit you with a Thoughtseize and then you top deck that thing, because that happens and that's beautiful. Those are the most triumphant moments.
I imagine that feels something like when they use one of the discard effects in Limited, and you're like, I don't have any of that. Joke's on you, my hand's bad.
Oh, those are the best. The number of times I've sat on
creature artifact out of your hand, and I got lands and spells. We're fine.
Yep. Exactly. The number of times somebody's hit me with a Thoughtseize when I'm sitting on 3 lands, enjoy. Behold. In Standard, that happens a lot with Duress, where somebody will Duress me and I'm sitting on 2 creatures in a land, yeah, have at it. This is what I got.
Yeah, enjoy.
Have fun.
That's why I have feelings on discard cards in Limited. We can talk about that another time.
Sure.
But yeah, that's gotta feel great.
It's wonderful. Yeah.
To draw the thing that they literally could have Thoughtseize that would have been great for them, but you didn't have at the time.
Yeah. Well,
that's protection of Brainstorm, right? When you put the Brainstorm, when you can put the Brainstorm so you draw it the next time. So, yeah, that's fun.
That's the move. Oh yeah. So yeah, with Brainstorm, it helps protect you against that kind of thing because you can tuck the most important cards away. And this is again legal and timeless. So this was in the Mystical Archives, not the printing that I pulled up for the video, folks, but here, let me there we go. Because it's very important that you spend rare wild cards on Arena. But anyway, that's another story for another day. But
yeah, that one definitely is another story.
That could be a whole other podcast. But yeah. So anyway, High Power Magic. It's super fun. It's on Arena. You can do it. It's a blast. And it's awesome. It very much comes down to the handful. You're basically playing an entire game.
It's the most skillful Magic on Arena. There is right now. Yeah. Outside of Limited. Limited obviously is, takes a lot of skill to actually maneuver through not only constructing your deck but also winning the games. But Timeless, if you like constructed, Timeless is definitely where you're gonna hit the most skill intensive games, I think.
Pretty much
on the client.
And I think you're exactly right. And actually that is a lovely point, because when you're doing Timeless or any of these kind of super high power formats, you need to get the maximum value out of every single card. When you're in Standard, maybe you have a better matchup. You know, when you're in one of these kind of lower power constructed formats, maybe you have a better matchup and you can kind of get away with making a punt here and there. And, you know, the margins aren't, they're a little wider. You have a little bit more wiggle room, a little bit more grace. But yeah, in these high power formats, you need to be making every decision correctly. Or because if you make a mistake, you are completely dependent on your opponent making a bigger mistake. Otherwise, you are done. And that is it. And you're absolutely right, Hollywood. I love that comparison between high power constructed and limited, because in high power constructed, everybody's playing at an insanely high level, you know, with insanely powerful stuff. Everything's moving at 1,000 miles an hour, and you need to be able to keep up and do the best you can with what you got. And in limited, everybody is trying to make the most out of some pretty sketchy cards that are otherwise not great. I mean, your options are limited. That's why we call it that, right? And you have to get the maximum value out of every single card in order to best your opponent. And I think, in a way, they are kind of similar in that regard. And the better players seem to get rewarded a little more heavily, I think, in those formats. And that does kind of dovetail nicely into the next topic that I wanted to touch on, which was Khans of Tarkir Limited. So that came to the format at the exact same time as Timeless. The announcement was kind of funny because it was like the same time as a BNR, if I'm not mistaken. They were like, oh, by the way, there's also going to be Timeless. At the same time, this whole new set was coming to Arena. It's like, oh, yeah, that set was coming to Arena. Wait, that's next week? What?
Wait, what? Yeah.
I think a lot of people had no idea that was coming. I don't know about you guys, but up until like the day before, I had a couple people in my chat being like, wait, Khans is coming to Arena? Yeah, they announced this a while ago, guys. But they just didn't make a big stink about it. So last Tuesday, Khans of Tarkir, a beloved draft format, came to Arena. And Headology, you're definitely one of our limited experts, I think it's safe to say, because, you know, you play a lot of limited and you kick butt doing it.
You play a lot, yes.
Yeah.
Expert?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hey. No, you're killing it. So I'm curious. I personally have not had an opportunity to play Khans of Tarkir yet. I've been too busy actually playing Hammer Time because I get a chance to play Hammer Time. So, but what have your impressions been so far? What are your thoughts on the format?
So I did play it when it first came out.
Okay.
In stores. I didn't play it online on Magic Online. Arena wasn't there yet.
Mm-hmm.
So my experience of it in stores is very different from my experience of it online. Number one, because in stores you're playing with a lot of kids and, you know, new players to the game, etc., and so on and so forth. But I do remember loving it in stores. And part of that was, and I imagine this is the same. I never drafted during Kicker. Invasion, I think it was. I never drafted during that period. And I didn't draft really during Onslaught with a little bit of Morph.
Okay. Yep.
But drafting Khans felt wonderful because a lot of the time what happens in Limited is you want to curve out, but you don't want to hit your early game in your late game.
Sure.
So you don't want to hit your like lesser powered cards, your cheaper spells in your late game, because they're just not going to do enough for you at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But you also don't want to hit your really expensive spells early.
Because you just literally can't play them. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're just like, hey, this is going to sit in my hand forever. It's cool. I will stare at this card. It has Night Arse. Nice art. Night Arse. That's awesome.
Nice. I mean,
okay.
Maybe that too, but art. Nice art. Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
I don't know. I think the fact that Arena hasn't fixed the bugs that made my Knight tokens into like Jock Knights is probably still playing on my mind today.
Wait, Jock Knights?
Played some WoW drafts and they had the tokens and the art is just all black. There's nothing there. Dominic Meyer's art is not there. It's apparently only on my stream.
Really? I've seen that.
The art
I've seen
doesn't want to load.
Huh. But, I've seen other cards do that.
Night Arse.
Huh. So yeah, but like.
But yeah, this card has nice art. Huh. Yeah, the Dominic Meyer tokens. I just have a black, area where the artwork should be.
That's awkward.
On Arena. But anyway, that's
lovely.
Clearly, infiltrating my brain here. I'm very tired, but
all good.
Anyway, stare at this card. It has nice art. It's expensive. I can't play it forever, so it's gonna stick in my hand for a while. So the thing about cons though, and the morph there was that you were given a versatility that you weren't previously. Now Onslaught with its morph might have also had some of that flexibility. But the morph mechanic and the kicker mechanic are two of my favorite things for limited because they allow you that versatility. They allow you to play a card early game for less or later game for more. So you don't have a card stuck in your hand doing nothing, and later game you're not playing this really dinky little 2/2 that isn't going to impact the board.
Well, yeah, and
so that's a great example. Abzan Guide, one of the stronger morphs. The tricolored morphs. They have that's basically signpost morphs. So Abzan Guide and Efreet and things like that. There's so many that are wonderful. There are five of them. They're amazing.
But yeah, this one
can
Rider
and
it can be a 6-drop.
This is one of my favorites of them.
Yeah, it can be a 6-drop. It can be your 3-drop, and if it's your 3-drop, it can then also be your 5 mana play as well.
Expander, exactly. And so this not only does this give you the versatility in getting them out of your hand and playing them and impacting the board, but what it does is those morphs are face down. You have to play a psychological game with your opponent about which one to kill, right? And which ones to block, right? And which ones, et cetera, et cetera. So there's so many decisions. There's a little bit of luck involved there too, because Arena doesn't label them 1, 2, 3, etc., which they had to be labeled originally.
Oh, interesting.
In person, you had to label them morph 1, morph 2, which one you played first, second, third, right?
Okay. But on Arena, they're all automatically ordered on the board.
Yeah,
right?
So they were ordered on the thing. Yeah. So, but so it's really interesting to figure out. There's a little bit of luck of like, well, I blocked the wrong one. I made the wrong decision. I killed the wrong one. Like, it just happens. Like the other day, I was like, I had a choice. Actually, earlier today, I had a choice of 2 morphs to kill, and I happened to choose their Sagu Mauler, which is a 6/6 hexproof trample. And I was really happy about that. But it could have gone the other way, and I could have just lost the game based on that one to choice.
Sure.
And that is a little bit of extra luck that feels bad sometimes. Sometimes it feels really good. You'll remember the ones that feels bad more because that's the way humans are wired. But
and as the player who's interacting with those face down creatures, I mean, you have no information to go off of. I mean, that might as well have just been a coin flip, right? You I guess you know which one they played first, but even then, like,
well, sometimes knowing which one they played first, you have a psychological, like, is the poison in front of me or in front of you?
Sure.
No one's immune to iocane. But you can choose, right? And you can like, well, usually people play their less valuable more first because they're like, okay, people are going to use removal on this, and then they'll play the more valuable one second. So should I go for the second one? But if they know that I know that, do I do that? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. How smart do I think my opponent is here?
Exactly. And land wars in Asia. But yeah, so that's there's a lot that goes into that. So it does make for really interesting games. It makes for a lot of, percolation up here. And it's just really fun that way, in terms of lots of decisions. Now, it can feel a little arbitrary because, again, kill the wrong one, you might just be dead, right? And you didn't have the information that you needed. Morph cannot be responded to. So you can't be like, okay, it would turn into a 6/6, but I'll kill the 2/2. Right?
Oh, interesting.
Fastest action besides state-based, I think.
Oh, so it's similar to playing a land drop, where it's just, interesting. Yeah, so is flipping it face up considered a cost? Anyway, no, I can look into that later. Anyway, that's interesting. I guess I didn't even realize that. Yeah.
But yeah, turning it face up, it's instant. It's beyond instant. It's faster than instant. You cannot respond.
It would have to be, because if that went on the stack, you would see the cost that they paid for it. And so you'd be able to hold up your removal and like, oh, you paid, 5 mana and green and blue was
And
in
that's
there,
the
so I
thing,
need to
most
kill
of
that
the
now.
morphs that are worth anything are all 5-drops, which is
Mhm.
why this set is an 18 land format.
Oh, okay.
Because you need to hit 5 because you need to unmorph. You saw the Abzan guide was 5. This is
Mhm.
5. Most
Yeah,
of the
I think
other
all of
signposts are
the wedge
5.
ones are 5, right? Like I know the goblin's 5. The goblin, when you flip it
The
up, it makes
goblin's
like 3
5. The
tokens.
Gadul is 5. The
Hmm.
the ponyback is the goblin. That's 5.
Yeah,
All of the
ponyback's 5.
signposts are 5, I believe.
Hmm.
Maybe the Ifrit is not. I think it is, but the cheaper ones are like there's the lifelinker one. There's a few morphs that unmorph by revealing a card in your hand. So like the Death Toucher you reveal a card, a black card from your hand, or the Watcher, the white flyer 2
The
one.
green one gives
Um,
trample.
Reveal that. The green one gives trample, etc. The red one that makes something not able to block, etc. So
Yeah, the
there are
red
a
one
few
was
that
like
like
one of the
reveal
best
for other
ones.
stuff, but in general, you're gonna want to get to 5 mana every game really on time because the person who starts flipping their morphs first or is able to flip their morphs first really does win. The other thing that does win is getting the lands. You need to have, apart from the strongest deck, which is the Black White Warrior deck, which relies on the 2-drop that once you've attacked, their raid. Raid is a mechanic where you
Mm-hmm.
attack and then you get when you play a creature, if it has an ability raid, you get that trigger, and the trigger is usually quite valuable. So you have Bellowing Saddlebrood is one. You rely on the 2/1 that comes into play. If you attack that turn, opponent discards a card. There's a 2/3 white, 2 and white that
Yeah, it makes a token.
puts a 1/1 into play, a 1/1 warrior, and you
Yeah, that
rely
used
on
to be
Rush
like
of
one of the
Battle,
best
which
ones.
can just completely turn a game around because it's +2/+1 to all your creatures, but your warriors also gain lifelink, and so you go wide enough there. With like I think it's Take Up Arms that puts like 3 tokens into play. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that deck is the strongest. You just have to get the pieces, and you're usually fighting over it because it is the strongest. It's also the most streamlined, and so it goes fastest. It's more reliable in terms of its mana base, etc.
Yeah, not as many
Now
mana
that said,
issues.
you're fighting over
Sure.
that. So oftentimes, a 5-color strategy is perfectly viable in this. You just need the lands. You need to make sure that you get the lands, and the lands are in every pack. Sometimes in Arena, they're really weird. I had a pack open today that had 4 of the duels.
Whoa.
4 in one pack. That doesn't usually happen in printed packs. So I'm a
Yeah,
little
that's wild.
weirded out by the distribution. Like, it didn't feel like drafting in paper. So things like Blossoming Sands, etc.
Yeah, the
Those
game life
are an
cycle.
example of those. Dismal
Yeah.
Backwater, yeah.
Yep.
So you gain a life, and so that can often offset the time taken for a tap land to enter the battlefield, and for you to then be able to play all your bombs that are all these colors or all these signposts, etc. And for decks like that, there are 2 cards that really work well to enable it, like Trail of Mysteries and Secret Plans. So Trail of Mysteries is a rare, but Secret Plans is uncommon. Trail of Mystery is nuts. Basically, you play your morphs, you get lands.
Wow.
And you're always going to hit your land drops. You're thinning your deck of lands, so you're just all going to draw spells. And then
That's gas.
not only
Yeah.
that, but it pumps your creatures when they flip. And then Secret Plans is an uncommon and also nearly equally stupid, because it says all of your morphs are now 2/3s, so they don't trade equally with opponents' morphs. And whenever you unmorph them, you draw a card.
Wow.
Yeah, so it is sick in limited. Both of those cards are 2 cards that if you're running the morph decks, you just want them. You want to draft those very, very highly. They are crazy, and usually you can fix for them even if you're splashing. It depends. You're not going to run that in the warrior deck, but you can run it in other things like the multicolor ones, Teamer. That you might even splash for that in Abzan or whatever you're in.
Sure. Yeah.
As long as you're not in that warrior deck. But I've seen people do it in warrior decks, and I don't know how they do that. I don't have any idea why they're playing 5 colors in a warrior deck, and I'm like, what? How is this? Yeah.
Yeah, I thought early consistency was kind of
If
important.
I tried to do that, I would never make the next color. Like I have trouble getting 2 colors on the board, let alone the like 5 that plus the, hitting the aggro warrior curve is so strange. But I had somebody do that earlier to me today, where they played the first game. They crushed me with. Well, sorry, they played warriors. I managed to get there, but I thought they had a warrior deck. So the next game I'd sided in, decided out my like Smite the Monstrous, and I'd sided out my Dead Drop. And Smite the Monstrous kills a 4 power or something like that. And Dead Drop is a delve card that makes an opponent sacrifice 2 creatures, which when they're making 1,000,000 tokens is horrid.
Yeah.
So I'd sided out those, but then they played only like 5 drops that were like 4 power and above, and I was just like dead.
What?
It was so bad.
Based on the information you saw in
how
game
are
1,
you
though, that
doing
sounds...
this? You have 5 colors in your warrior deck, and you happen to manage to get all the warriors in that fund.
That's
I would
wild.
just have I'm jealous of people's luck. We'll put it that way. Salt, wah. Anyway,
We've all had that. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to with this set. There's a lot of play with what colors you can run, how many different things you can do, like strategies overall. But the main thing is just that really it's really funny because when you lay out the curve for most limited decks, it's gonna look something like this.
Okay, sure.
Right? With the like few 1 drops, right? A bunch of 2 drops, a bunch of 3 drops, and go back to this. Like up into like very few really, really high drops. But this set is like maybe you have a 1 or 2 drop. Then your 3 drop slot is just like
fully loaded. Sure, yeah.
because they're all morphs.
Right, of course.
And so you can play them all on 3. You just have to make sure you get to that 5, which is why it's an 18 land format, and even on Arena. Because you have to hit 5.
Sure.
You do not want to be stuck being the one not unmorphing or not playing more powerful spells on 5.
Yeah.
So there are some haymakers. There's Dune Blast, which literally you pick a creature and destroy all the rest, so you can keep your best creature and everything else dies.
Gross.
It's not okay.
No.
We knew it wasn't okay back then.
How often is that just 7 mana, I win the game? I mean, that's how this reads to me. I mean,
so it's so frequent.
Yeah. No, that's wild. And it's funny because
I actually could have beaten it. I've hit it like 4 times today alone. Like opponents had it 4 times today alone. And I could have beaten it if they didn't Karu Lich Lord right after.
Oh.
Find that card.
Karu Lich Lord.
Yeah. That's a thing.
See, it would probably help if I spell it correctly.
I think that's its name.
I believe you. Ah, yes. No, there's one of those silent fantasy H's in there. Okay, there we go. Yes. So 4/4.
They Dune Blasted into this.
If you do return a creature card at random from your graveyard to the battlefield.
This card.
Gross.
Because I had actually played around Dune Blast, and I was able to fill the board again, but I was at a low life total. So they played this, and then just started throwing creatures at my face, and I was just dead.
Sure.
So,
that's awful.
It was not okay. Now this card isn't individually that strong.
Yeah, it looks good.
Oftentimes you're gonna actually Sultai is really good with that because Sultai fills up the graveyard really well. Sultai is the black, green, and blue. Used to be known as Bug.
Right.
Black, blue, green.
Yep.
But yeah, Sultai is really good at filling up the graveyard for Delve. That's what its best thing is. And so this is normally played late game. It's not an early game card. And then you, in theory, have a lot of cards in your graveyard and you're starting to throw creatures at them. It's not good early, and it's a 6 mana 4/4, which isn't good in this format.
Yeah, and this does not have morph, so there's no early utility on it. Yeah, right.
Yes. So it's a card that you don't necessarily expect to see follow up Dune Blast, especially since it has a blue pip in it. But it did. Anyway.
Ouch. Oh, that's savage.
Yeah, Sultai specializes in filling up the graveyard. Mardu specializes in going wide. Abzan specializes in going tall with counters. And Jeskai specializes in prowess, which means that when you cast a non-creature spell, things do horrid things to your opponent. It's not cool. Yeah, that was played against me today.
Oof, I'm sorry. Yeah, just guys said and see that enchantment is silly.
My opponent had that Goblin Slide and I don't think I forget what it's called, but like it whenever you play a non-creature spell, you can pay 1 and tap down opponent creature. It doesn't untap during its next untap step. It's an uncommon.
Yikes.
It's 2 and a blue or something like that. Until they played this, I was winning. Jeskai Ascendancy was a house in Standard at the time. It was a part of an infinite combo with the Retraction Helix or something like that. 1 blue, and then you could bounce stuff, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Khan's block, I think, and it was just so gross.
Yeah, it had there was a mana creature involved.
Exactly, yes.
I don't remember the exact mana creature that was with it, but there was a mana creature that was involved.
It might have been Rattleclaw.
Yeah, Retraction Helix.
There was also one that
untapped
a couple lands, but you exerted it, and you can get around the exert by untapping
This was gross.
Yeah.
But Jeskai Ascendancy is very, very sick. So that's the prowess thing there. So that's Sultai, Abzan, Mardu, Jeskai, and Temur. Temur specializes in big things with trample.
Now we're talking.
That's basically all it does. It just goes, get with my darlings and eat small things.
Love it.
So it's all about that Stagu Mauler and the 5. Its signpost is a 5/5 trampler. And
yep. I think I got it. Yeah, the Snowhorn Rider. Yeah.
Yeah, and it likes the 4/2 the bear, Alpine Grizzly, and just pumping things and using +3/+3 and trample tricks, things like that. And Savage Punch. Got to bring up the punch though. It's punching a bear.
If you haven't seen the art on Savage Punch, folks, and if you're not watching on the video feed over on our YouTube, I highly recommend you check it out. YouTube.com/MagicJank, because
go to that YouTube.
Savage Punch. It's a beauty. This is one of the best. I believe that's just Surak freaking laying into a bear. It's and the bear is having a rough time of it. We'll just put it that way. Yeah, not having a good
Kung Fu Panda, slow motion.
Oh, big time.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, Surak is going full force, punching a bear in the face, and it's working. That's what. Yeah. Yeah.
No regrets.
None.
So Savage Punch is one of the better removal spells in the format, but again, that 4/2 enables it really well, that Alpine Grizzly, which is funny because the bear is actually doing the punching. But yeah, the Temur relies a lot on having things with 4 power, just anything big. Now the Grizzly doesn't actually have that much toughness, so it usually trades with a morph, but usually when they unmorph, whatever they were going to do with it, right? The bear will still trade usually. The only thing that gets around it is the 5 toughness one, which is Temur itself.
Gotcha.
So usually it's just a really nice early card to have, even though it looks unassuming because it has that 2 toughness, and therefore it would trade with most morphs even before they've unmorphed. It's still 3 mana for their 3 mana. But you have the 4 power, and it enables a lot of the Temur tricks that way.
Oh my goodness!
I'm forgetting what the 2 and a green, and it makes the creature indestructible if it's 4 power and they have to block. That one's really good.
I believe you.
So basically, I usually eat 2 morphs with that. That is usually what happens. A roar of something. I forget what it is. But it's an uncommon. It's green. It's 2 and a green, and you basically roar of challenge. That's what it is. All creatures able to block target creature this turn do so. You can do that just to get in for lethal.
Absolutely.
If you have enough creatures to throw at them, absolutely put it on your smallest creature and then go ham.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Side note, commander players out there, if you have a combat centric commander or like combat centric commander deck, these kind of effects, like this lure taunting elf, like they get the job done because it gives the rest of your team unblockable. Anyway, yeah. Sorry,
absolutely.
continue.
All creatures able to block target creature this turn do so. And then because the ferocious is that teamer trick of like 4 mana, 4 power or whatever. If you have a creature with power 4 or greater, something happens. And in this case, that creature gains indestructible. So I have eaten morphs, multiple morphs. It's so nice. For 3 mana, it's just nice.
I love it.
I highly recommend this card. You don't want too many of them in the deck because obviously you still need the creature to be able to enable it. And it has to be done at the right time. If they have a 5/5 and you have a 4/4, that's not really gonna do anything.
Right.
So you do rely on those tricks. Absolutely.
But
the +2/+3 and trample is a surprisingly effective trick, even at 3 mana.
That's wild. Well, and we've looked at a number of 5-drops, so far in this discussion that have 4 toughness. So the fact that the Alpine Grizzly can actually trade up with them, that's...
Yeah, 5 toughness is the key in this format.
Yeah.
5 toughness is the thing that will get you around most spells.
That's incredible.
And most morphs. 5 toughness is absolutely key. So the parapet, I think Archer's Parapet. I'm not exactly sure what the first word is, but it's 1 and a green, and it has you can ping your opponent for 1 and a black.
Yep.
Yeah, that is actually a really good card to hold back your opponent, especially if you have a flying deck or anything like that. It really does just stonewall a lot of things.
Nice.
They really have to pump their morphs usually, or they have to be in Teamer, which can usually get to 5. With that morph. But it's a really good way to hold off early aggression. It's a good way to close out the game eventually if there's a board stall. And that 5 toughness just stonewalls so much, unless they're a flying deck, in which case the archers don't have reach.
Which, by today's kind of flavor sensibilities, that doesn't quite line up, but okay. Yep. But
flavor-wise, not so much. So it's a really cool set for limited. That said, one thing that people are saying is it's lower powered. Yeah, I mean, because there's been power creep over 10 years.
Oh sure, we were just talking about the Alpine Grizzly. It's a vanilla 4/2
It's a
for
vanilla
3.
4/2 for 3.
Yeah, they
and it's
don't make
decent.
vanilla creatures anymore.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
it's a big deal. It's a spectacle when they do. Yeah.
2/1.
Yeah.
Sandbar. Yeah. It's blue. 1 and a blue for a 2/1 vanilla. It's god awful, but
I love it.
if you need a 2-drop, it's there.
fills the curve. Fills the curve when you need it.
Fills the curve
So
when
wait,
you need
what's
it. Exactly. Lonely Sandbar, something like that.
Lonely Sandbar is the land. I'm not.
that's the
finding it
land.
from here.
No,
Yeah.
I think it's Sambar, not Sandbar.
Wetland Sandbar. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, it's
Thank
not
you.
lonely. It's
Wetland.
wetland. Yeah, sorry.
It's
Yeah,
an
yeah,
elk.
No,
It's
it's
not
fine.
even
I
like
heard
a
Sandbar and I wasn't
realistic,
familiar with the cards. I was like, wait. What?
No, I said
fine.
the other, but
It is all good. Yeah, a 2/1 elk for 1 and a
that's
blue.
card in this.
This card looks like it belongs in Ikoria. I don't know.
Yeah, the art definitely.
Yeah.
So, and it looks like it should be like mutated on or something. I don't know, but
Little bit.
it's already
Yeah,
been maybe
definitely.
from its things. But so there is power creep. So overall, cons can feel very strange to newer players who haven't experienced the craziness. Like, oh my gosh, I actually have to play a 4/2 for 3.
Yeah. Oh no, my cards don't just win the game by themselves. I have to play Magic.
Exactly.
Oh no, Magic.
And so that's
oh,
one
no,
of
have
the
to play
reasons that I
Magic
like
now?
cons usually
Oh,
is that
no,
most of the
Magic's
cards don't do
hard.
that. Yes, there's an exception of like Dune Blast, but like And there are some exceptions of curving out into like Mardu Ascendancy, which starts producing goblins for
I was
every creature that attacks.
I was hanging
It's
out on
non-token.
Damien Street not too long ago, and he picked one of these up like pick 4 somehow.
Oh
And
my
he was just
god.
like, well, that's what we're doing. And he
Yeah,
proceeded
Mardu
to, I think,
Ascendancy
7-0
is
cleanly
sick.
because, yeah.
Almost all of the Ascendancies are crazy. There are exceptions. Though the best ones are Mardu Ascendancy, Abzan Ascendancy, and Jeskai Ascendancy.
Okay.
Those are all 3 nuts. Teamer Ascendancy can get you advantage and does give you haste, but it's less good in limited than it is in constructed. EDH, like there's some in any Teamer deck just was like, yeah, put it in. Sultai Ascendancy is the weakest. It's still good, but it's so much weaker than those other ones. Abzan Ascendancy gets you 1/1s whenever your creatures die. Yeah, Sultai just surveils, that's it. Like,
I mean,
it's
surveil 2
fine.
every turn. That's worth 3 mana, but
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
it's not quite as
worth a
explosive as
lot,
the
but
others. Yeah.
compared to the others, it's just not. Like, I have been beaten by Sultai Ascendancy just because the surveilling means you're drawing exactly what you want. It also fills up the graveyard for Delve. But that's not, like, I mean, if you look at Mardu Ascendancy or Abzan Ascendant, look at Abzan.
They give
Abzan
you
is
something like right away, right? Like,
cray
that's like the
cray.
biggest difference is that you get something right away out of those other ones,
Yeah.
whereas like the
So
Sultai,
plus almost one
Sultai's
counter
like
on
a slow
each
build.
creature you control. And then
That's
whenever a
gnarly.
non-token dies, get a 1/1. Like, what?
But that
Flyer.
flies.
Like, what the hell?
That's
In limited,
bananas.
it's
Yeah.
so crazy. So there are some amazing, ascendancies there. Again, Sultai is the weakest. It's still good.
Right.
But they're usually, like, unless you curve out into these, like, there are usually ways around some of them. But, like, Dune Blast is a game ender. There are a few other game enders, but overall, there's far fewer of them than there are these days. And there's less shot of, like, okay, you miss a land drop and you're done. The game's over. Now, if you draw 12 land and 7 cards, like I do,
I mean, that's magic.
the
These
game is
games
also
happen.
over.
Yep.
But
Sure.
yeah, so you just have to be careful about your opening hands, as you always would be. And you have to really think through the tempo of it because of the morph. Because you have to
Sure.
say, okay, am I willing to trade this morph now, which has added value down the line when I unmorph it, for their 4/2 or for their morph? What are the chances my morph is going to be worth more to me later than their morph? What are the chances that they can unmorph their thing right now?
Right.
Do they have the 5 mana, or do they have fewer, and maybe were they revealing a card from their hand? What's happening here? So there's a lot going on for that. You really have to plan it out. You really have to think about a lot of decisions about those. And when you go on the aggressive, when you hold back, what that looks like. Whether you have the late game. Since it is a slightly slower format than we're used to these days, right? It's got a 4 mana, bring 2 creature cards back from your graveyard. That's decent, right?
Okay.
Like, sometimes that's just gonna bring back your 2 best cards. And they don't even have to be that good. They might just have to be creatures, right?
Yeah. Some power is
Yeah.
sometimes all
Because
you
the the removal is total butt. The removal is awful in this. Murderous Cut is the best of them, basically. There is one Wrath besides the Dune Blast, which is End Hostilities, but it's a 2-sider, not the thing.
okay.
But Murderous Cut, because it's Delve, it can be cheap, it's instant. That's one of the best ones. Obviously, Savage Punch is there, but it's sorcery speed.
Right.
So there's a lot you have to sort of think about. Red tends to be one of the weaker colors overall. Just in the general. If you get all the red cards, great, you're fine, you're doing great. But, like, in general, red is one of the weakest colors. And so it's... Cat's like, hi.
The impression that I get is the sets being kind of at this general power level for so many years is probably why certain draft conventions have become, kind of conventional wisdom, prioritizing removal. It's like, well, if the best you're going to find is Murderous Cut, it's like, well, if you get a Murderous Cut, you should probably take it because who knows when you're going to get anything that could do that job later.
Yeah.
Whereas nowadays, I know one of the pitfalls that you can fall into with, especially Lost Caverns of Ixalan draft, which is the most recent standard set that's draftable. Yeah, I know it's very easy to get too much removal. And just not have enough threats in that format. At least that's something that I've heard. I have drafted it myself. But I
haven't found that. What I have found, though, is that you really have to be careful about the removal that you get. It better be really valuable. So a Braid is one of the best cards in that set.
Okay, sure.
Because it can take care of any artifact. And the artifact can be quite a bit more valuable than a 2-mana spell.
Right.
So you're getting a lot of value in that.
So you have to be a little more selective.
The problem these days is that unlike with cons, for the most part, everything's a 2-for-1. So if you 1-for-1 removal on a creature that's already gotten value off of its trigger, you're behind.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say they play a Captain Storm into a Breaches and attack with the Captain Storm. You've already got it. They've already got it in treasure and a +1/+1 counter off Captain Storm. And killing Captain Storm is still going to be important, but you're dead.
Right. Yeah, pretty much. Well, and I mean, things like Breaches. I mean, Breaches alone is just...
Breaches is sick, yeah.
Breaches is silly. This card is amazing.
Breaches is dumb.
Yeah. And it's any pirate. Yeah, you get those kind of triggers that...
So cons, the mana, the removal is, like, so take a look at Rite of the Serpent. It's 6 mana. 6 mana.
I love that art, though, but yeah.
Sorcery speed removal for a creature. So this card is going to be awful against the warrior deck.
Oh, yeah.
Against a slower morph deck, yeah, you might run it. Against an Outlast deck, which is Abzan, that's the +1/+1 counters.
Mm-hmm.
That is going to be... that's going to be more where you want this.
But you
might just be desperate enough to take it anyway because you need to kill that one flyer that's giving you problems. Flying is still good, as you mentioned.
Oh, yeah. Flying wins games.
The thing is, you still probably get value off of this card in a way that sometimes you do not in the removal in the current meta of sets in Limited. Is just... everything's a 2-for-1, that every creature that they play is going to be value beyond what just playing it usually. Right. And so the removal is just not as valuable as it would be otherwise. So here, cons, yes, you do want to take the removal. It's still awful, but it's going to be important at some point. So you do want to prioritize some removal, absolutely, and especially the Murderous Cut is one of the top ones. Savage Punch is, you got to be careful because there is Force Away, there's Bounce. So you have to be careful because you're targeting. You have to make sure they're tapped out. People do tap out fairly frequently just because the cards are pricier than they are now. Like you don't get as much value for the mana, but they sometimes leave up just to unmorph.
Oh, sure, so, that makes sense.
But yeah, Force Away is it can be quite brutal, especially in the prowess decks, just for that tempo.
Okay.
So you can see that this is technically a teamer card, it's meant to be a teamer card. Look at the see from the symbol.
Yeah.
Right? You can also see from Ferocious, the mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually among the best in the prowess deck. Because it just does that tempo, and you got these flyers that are now huge from the spell. So the Jeskai, like Wind Scout or whatever it is, the 2/1 burb, is very burbish.
Well, and on top of that, actually
crush people.
Yeah, I'd imagine prowess actually does help you get to Ferocious. Yeah. Sometimes. So yeah.
Sometimes you can play that after playing another spell, right? So and on cast, right?
Yeah. So
So
when it resolves, well, was that it did that creature have 4 power? Yeah.
yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, that I can see
So
how in this format this card's a beating. Yeah.
oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so good. And again, so your savage punches get a little weaker because they're sorcery speed, and you have to make sure. So you have to make sure your opponent's tapped out. So there's a lot of things you have to think about because the cards aren't quite as strong as they are now. And I do like that. I do really like that. The only thing that troubles that I've been having are that I've been flooding massively,
Sure.
which is what's new. But
I get that.
welcome to my streams. But yeah, that's my main complaint. The other thing is the number of times I've hit Doomblast.
Yeah.
I think I had it once, but I never saw it.
I mean,
I couldn't play it. That's right.
Now,
Yeah,
okay.
I couldn't play it because it wasn't in the colors that I had.
Now,
that I was in.
which is more salt-inducing, Doomblast here or Sunfall? Which was the more frustrating card? Because I'm getting similar vibes from both of them.
So Sunfall is more anger-inducing. Here's why.
Okay.
So I fully expect, if you have a different opinion, totally cool. But so Doomblast, your creature, you might have only had one creature and it was a dinky creature.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Sure.
The thing about Sunfall is the better they were doing,
Yes.
the better you're now doing.
Mm-hmm. The swing is much more, much more violent. Yeah,
Exactly.
I get that. I get that.
So basically, Doomblast feels horrid.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong. It feels awful. It's so bad. It should never have been in that format. It does require 3 different colors and cost 7 mana, though.
Very
Number
true.
1.
Yep.
Number 2, Sunfall leaves you with a gigantic creature, potentially. The better they were doing, the better you're doing now, and it's very unlikely that they can, afford to play around that. So Doomblast, you get to keep one creature, great, but what if you didn't have one, right?
Yeah.
Sunfall, you're always gonna have one.
You always get one, exactly. Yeah, in any situation where you would play Sunfall, you get a thing. Yeah.
Sunfall needs to.
Well, I didn't play in any format where Doomblast was the thing, which is why I ask. I played Standard and Sunfall. Yeah, no, I'm not a fan. So no, yeah, no. We're on the same page there. Yeah, like
Doomblast is a mess.
As somebody who really likes his graveyards, Doomblast at least has the courtesy to be a destroy effect, which I appreciate.
Yeah, you do. I mean, it does fill the graveyard for Delph, absolutely, or that Caro Lich Lord that you follow up with.
Exactly. Yeah, that was. Yeah, that's gross. But yeah, good stuff.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. I love my death triggers as well. I think those are really valuable, and that's the worst when you have a bunch of death triggers teed up, and you're like, all right, it's gonna be great. Your opponent's Sunfall. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exile. Farewell. Haha.
I'm so glad that Bartolome's in Standard now, because oh man, little guy.
Bartolome's so good.
So good. Yeah.
It's going in 2 of my EDH decks.
As it should.
I need to find a foil of it, the regular. I have a foil of the alternate art, but I don't like the alternate art as well as I like the regular art.
Yeah.
That thing is. Look at that. Look at the use of light.
It's so
pretty. Look at the color. Oh, that's just stunning.
Yeah, Randy Gallegos did the art on this and absolutely killed it. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Oh yeah.
So I need a foil of that, not the new one. The alternate is nice too, and I'm not trying to like poop on that.
The showcase is good, but if that's not the style,
the other one is just so beautiful. So yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, so Bartolome can sacrifice, and then you can get your death triggers and do all the things, and you can just keep that, and Doomblast will kill everything else after you sacrifice all your creatures to the Bartolome's. Bartolome's huge.
And the Bartolome's
fine, and then you can attack with it.
You sure can.
The only difference, the Doomblast, you can attack with that one creature that turn.
That's true.
Is another thing, but again, it costs 7 mana as opposed to 5 for Sunfall.
Oh no, like card for card, which is the better wipe? Sunfall all day, it's not even close. I was just in their respective formats. I was curious.
Just like feels bad, yeah.
As far as the feels bad goes, where do we rank? Because I know with cons being a slower format as well, maybe the difference between 5 and 7 for a sweeper, maybe that's similar. I don't know. I just thought it was I was curious.
And the guessing game that you have to play with these morphs, by the way, when you kill one or the other, you also have to guess based on what your knowledge of the form. So the more you know the morphs, the better.
Oh, I can imagine.
But the thing is, people are playing 5 colors, and you have no idea then. So take a look at Karu's Spell Snatcher. This card can really mess you up.
All right, so it's a 3/3 for 4, or it morphs for 4 blue. So you can flip it for 6. And when it's turned face up, counter target spell. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into the graveyard. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost for as long as it remains exiled. There's Spelljack on a morph, and I didn't know that? What?
Yes. It is.
This is my new favorite card.
It is absolutely gross. And the thing is, if they're playing blue, you always have to have this in the back of your head.
Mm-hmm.
And just be like, okay, is this actually what's happening here? Thousand Winds is another one where you just have to be very careful. Blue has a lot of really tricky cards at rare in the morph slot. So you have to be very careful against blue, and you have to make decisions of, can I afford to play around this? In the same way that you have to ask yourself, can I afford to play around a Wrath? You have to say, can I afford to play around this? So basically, you can attack all in. They just unmorph that. Everything goes back to your hand, and you're like, great.
And then you have at least 1 5-power flyer coming at you next turn. So it's like, oh, yay. Yeah. That's pretty savage.
Which is also really funny because the game that I lost with that Jeskai Ascendancy, so they played the Jeskai Ascendancy. That's really what ended the game. But I had the Thousand Winds morphed.
Okay.
And they were making the Goblin tokens. Remember, they had all the enchantments out.
Sure, yeah.
They were making the Goblin. They also had the Mantis, by the way. This was a house in Limited.
Okay.
I'm sorry, in Standard at the time.
Well, the High Spire
Hasty
Mantis?
Mantis.
Yep.
No, not High Spire. That's just the uncommon.
Oh, I'm
Mantis
sorry.
Rider.
Mantis Rider. Yeah, there were a lot of mantises, and I didn't realize how many mantises there were.
Mantis Riders. They had that.
Tarkir.
In addition to the Jeskai Ascendancy, the Goblin Slide or whatever it was, and the blue one. And so they were making every spell that they cast. They were making 1/1 goblins and tapping down a creature and making it not untap. And they were drawing and discarding a card with a Jeskai Ascendancy, I think. Whatever that thing does. It was brutal.
Yeah,
the
you get to
Jeskai
loot every
also
time.
untaps your things and gives them +1/+1.
Yep.
It untaps them.
All of them. Yes. Yeah.
All of them and gives them +1/+1. So that Thousand Winds that returns tapped creatures, as long as they could play a spell in response, nothing was going to be tapped.
Fortunately, it's a Jeskai Prowess deck. What are the chances that they have a spell they can cast at instant speed? Honestly, what are the chances?
So the morph happens instantly, but the trigger will go on the stack.
Right. Yeah.
For people who are wondering, right? The morph you can't respond to. So the Thousand Winds will be turned face up. Nothing that can be done about that. I did get my 5/6 flyer, right?
Right.
But the stack says, okay, then return all these tapped creatures to owner's hand, and all they have to do is cast a spell, and then there's no tapped creatures.
Yeah. It's like, oh, cool.
And then after
you've got a better
that,
blocker,
when they ran out of spells, they played the Brave the Elements, which gave all their creatures vigilance.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that sounds really, that sounds like a lousy matchup.
It's a very good card, by the way. Brave the Elements.
Brave the Elements?
But
absolutely.
It was the worst one for me to see at that point. It was so painful. Because I'd kept that, not Brave the Elements, sorry.
Brave the Elements sees
Sands. Sorry about that. I think it's Brave the Sands that gives this uncommon 1 and a white. And gives all creatures vigilance, and they can block an extra creature to combat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. So it's not really a good card at all, but in that one instance, that was just like last card I wanted to see. Well, they already had all these 3 Jeskai enchantments and the Mantis in play. But yeah, so there's so much stuff going on in this that they played this one card where you're like, wow, that's the only thing I didn't want to see. The Planeswalker in this set is Sarkhan. It is very good. And 5 mana, so 3 and 2 red, and they can do 4 damage to a creature or turn itself into a 4/4 dragon or all sorts of things that you don't want it to be doing to your face.
I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty nasty.
So I mean, it's a good card. It's been outclassed. I mean, it's been outclassed by far.
Yeah, it's definitely the old
Absolutely.
school.
But when you consider it
Yeah.
in this format, right? Remember that 5 toughness being key?
Yep.
There's another 4 damage spell. So yeah, and that's the +1 that turns it into a 4/4 red dragon with flying, indestructible, and haste.
Seems good. Yeah.
So yeah, so that's the planeswalker in this set. I don't believe there are any others.
There
But
is
that's the theme.
there's Sorin as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, there's Sorin.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was played against me earlier today. Should have remembered that. I conceded right afterwards though, so it was very brief.
No worries. That's understandable. Planeswalkers
Yeah.
Unlimited tend to be pretty backbreaking, even, ones that are maybe a little sketchy but compared to many others, just because the recurring value turn over turn is just an awful lot to deal with. Yeah.
One of the things that so Sorin's really, really good because it protects itself, which was at that time a 4-mana planeswalker that protects itself means put a 2/2 black vampire creature token with flying onto the battlefield. That's just mean. I mean, Sorin is actually better than Sarkhan, in my opinion. So the idea of a planeswalker at 4 mana that protects itself by putting a token into play, not only a token, but a token that has flying, so it can make sure to protect Sorin. That's just so much advantage. Now, Sorin is at its best in the warrior deck because the warrior deck goes wide. And again, this is a way to sort of trumpet blast your creatures or the pump spells for the warriors are the trumpet blast, Raiders, the Raiders one, which is like, it's a 4 mana uncommon enchantment that pumps +1/+0. And then whenever a warrior deals damage to an opponent, you can pay 1 life and draw a card. And then also the Rush of Battle, which is common. That's the +2/+1 and lifelink stuff. So there's Sorin's best in that shell.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense.
But
I mean,
it's good
a plus,
anywhere else too.
+1 that can give the entire squad lifelink. I mean, that gives you
lifelink, yeah.
That's a massive advantage in a racing scenario. Which
just make sure that all the creatures are on the board first. It won't if you activate that ability and then add creatures to the board, it won't affect them.
Right.
That's really key.
Yes. That's
I had
huge.
people be like, "Oh, activate Sorin," and then play like a creature, and then they're like,
play
"Why
a
doesn't that
haster
have
and
things?" Yeah.
Yeah.
So
bad news for you.
those are the 2 planeswalkers. That's sort of the general stuff about cons.
Yeah.
It is a really good format. Usually, I don't know whether the competition's more intense or more bombs are being opened or the pack distribution is weird or I'm not drafting correctly, which seems odd, but I'm having a lot of mana issues and a bit of luck, poor luck with this version of it, which is weird because I really love this set, but the drafts have been very strange.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And I've hit so many Dune Blasts.
That is really unfortunate.
There shouldn't be that many. I know it's a rare, but still.
Yeah.
So I'm not having as much fun with it as I expected I would. It's felt a little random, and I think part of that is best of 1.
Sure.
Which is the ranked format. I think best of 3 is going to be so much better. And I might be playing that now that we hit Mythic, so I might just go move over to the traditional and do the best of 3 because that's just such better Magic overall.
Yeah.
Best of 1 is so painful. But yeah, so that's cons. Those are my thoughts on it so far.
Nice.
I do recommend trying it out. It's really fun.
Okay.
But it's not something that I would start a new player out in.
That makes good sense. Yeah, starting
It's
anybody
way
in a
more
morph,
complicated, like
3-color morph set, like
exactly the decisions that you have to make, the tempos that the choices of tempo, the choices of changing from aggressor to defense, like when to do that. Those decisions are like when to just sort of swing out just so you can get that extra 2 points of damage in because it's gonna matter.
Yeah.
Whether the raid trigger is worth it, if you have to sacrifice something, etc. You have to know all the cards so that the morphs you can figure out what the potentials for the morph are,
Right.
and whether you can deal with any of them, and which ones you can and cannot play around.
Yeah.
And Doom Blast. Play around Doom Blast.
Doom Blast. Well, and the other thing about this particular format that is especially awkward for arena players specifically, if you weren't playing back when the set first came out, I mean, obviously, if you have previous knowledge about it, great, you get to dust that off and, you know, bring it back into the arena. But if you're in a position like me, where I was actually taking a break from Magic when cons initially dropped, so I don't have any of those old memories, those old experiences. You know, it's funny, I have a lot of fun nostalgia for Morph just because I started during the Onslaught block. And so I know those Morphs.
Nice.
Like, yeah, Scornful Egotist, Titanic Bullfox, Chrome Shell Crab. I have so much nostalgia for that stuff.
I did Scornful the Egotist with Torrent of Fire. Remember that one?
Oh, yeah.
8 damage to face.
Mm-hmm. The one that I did with Scornful Egotist was... it was Accelerated Mutation, which is like the giant growth that cost 5 mana, but it was +X, where X is the highest CMC. Yeah, it was silly. It was like, yeah, Scornful Egotist doesn't look like much as a 1/1, but as a 9/9, now we're talking. Yeah, anyway. Still not great, if we're honest, but it's fun. Anyway.
No, none of my... I built a deck around, like, Star and Scornful like, it had a Scornful Egotist in it, but, like, Brood Star was 10 damage to the face with Torrent of Fire.
Yep.
It was so good.
It was so good. Torrent of Fire.
It's not good, but it was so good.
It's not good, but it's so good. That's it. That sums up early 2000s Magic at its finest. Like, it's not good, but it's so good. Broodstar is another one. Broodstar actually was on the cover when we first went to Mirrodin. This artwork was very prominently featured on the packs, you know, and like on starter decks and stuff.
Standard.
Yeah, well, and this is like, by the way, everybody, this is what Affinity is, and this monster was how they introduced it to us.
And then Ravager just destroyed everything.
Yep.
Arcbound Ravager was nuts.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so
anyway,
again, I don't think cons is good for new players necessarily.
Sure.
I think it's a little bit more complicated than, I mean, they can play it, but like I said, newer players really love the really powerful cards that we're getting in these new sets, where they can just play this card and win the game, right? As opposed to being, you know, having to really know the set and be well versed.
Yeah,
to some degree.
If folks right now are playing on Arena, if they're playing Standard, even if they're playing Explorer or Historic to some degree, if you go into any of the limited environments that are available of those sets, the play patterns will feel familiar, and you'll even see some, you know, a number of cards you recognize, you know, that are seeing play in those other formats. In this, there's nothing. Like, there isn't, I don't believe there's I don't know, there might be some cards that are technically standard legal in cons, but I don't think it's very many at all, and none that see meaningful play. So, you know, if you're still relatively new to the game, if you've been playing on Arena and you have no background with cons, all those cards are going to be brand new, and the way that it plays is going to feel very different than any other limited environment we have right now.
And it's going to be fun. Like,
it will be.
Because you don't think you'll do well with it doesn't mean you shouldn't try it.
If you have access to draft tokens or gems, go for it.
It's not likely to be as pick it up and go as some of like LCI and stuff like that, where you could just play this bomb and just win. If you're really invested in winning, maybe don't try the LCI, not the cons if you're new.
That makes sense.
If you really want to invest in like getting into the game and seeing how it works, seeing how the triggers hit the stack, seeing how, you know, again, to work the incremental advantage and to figure out the stuff and learning how to memorize the set and the tricks that are in the set and the morphs that you could hit, this is a really good set to practice on.
I love it. No, super cool. Yeah, thank you for the rundown. Thanks for, you know, your impressions, because that's always the question.
Oh,
like, how did it age? Like, is it still as good as? Because I was fully expecting like my Twitter feed to just be filled with people going, man, I remember it a lot better than this. And I've heard some of that, but I've heard a couple other folks be like, it's still awesome. Let's go. So, I don't know.
I think it's a mid experience because I have had some bad luck, but also Arena, I think the packs are just a little wonky. I don't know, because 4 lands in a pack doesn't really happen in paper. Not generally. The common base, the common like.
Was it all the common ones too, or was because this set also has the series of uncommon tri-lands?
It has that too, but that's in the uncommon slots.
Right.
There's 4 of the commons actually in that thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and those
So
lands,
yeah.
the gain life lands, those are very common in
Yeah.
limited
So that you can
environments.
fix
Like
for your morphs.
yeah, I mean, yeah, Kamigawa and Ikoria and all that, they all had that, had these lands, and I've never seen more than one of these in a pack. Like two, I wouldn't think too much about. Like, oh, that's odd, but
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Before,
two
yeah,
I've
that's
seen.
wild.
I've never seen
Hmm.
four in a physical pack. I don't think I've ever seen three either.
I believe
But
it. Yeah,
maybe I'm misremembering that. I could be wrong. I
yeah,
don't think four.
yeah.
Three,
That
I could be
seems
wrong, but I don't think so.
that's interesting.
But I don't think I've seen it. Rather, I could
Right.
be wrong.
I wouldn't be
But
surprised
four I know.
if.
But yeah,
Well, the chances, it's funny though, because when you think about it, the chances of the common distribution on Arena matching exactly one for one the way that a printer would,
yeah, it's interesting.
I'm sure they're not perfect one to one,
Oh
but
no,
do they have
definitely
to
not. But
be?
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, that's a
it's
whole
been
other.
interesting.
Yeah, that is
So
interesting.
yeah, I have a
How does that
mixed
change the
review
experience?
of like how
Yeah.
it was from the past and how it was
Hmm.
now. Like I still enjoy the format. I still think it's interesting. But I'm not as enamored of it as I was in store, and that might be due to a number of different factors that we talked about.
Yeah.
So but
Yeah.
yeah, so that's
Interesting.
cons. And
Cons.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for being
I
here
know we
again.
didn't
Oh my
cover everything.
goodness.
If anybody has any questions, leave them in the comments.
Absolutely, please do. Yeah. 100%. Dude, Hollywood, we've been just kind of nerding out over cons, man. Do you got any thoughts or anything? Yeah.
Yeah, let
Have
us
you had a
know.
chance to play it at all recently or
No, I
not
haven't
yet?
gotten a chance to play it yet. But I'm definitely gonna maybe try to dive into it, especially now that I've definitely got some more information after this combo.
Heck yeah. Well, I'd say I'm feeling much more equipped now to step into my first cons draft. Yeah. I dig it. Very
It's a fun
cool.
one.
Well, I
Good
mean, those were
luck.
definitely the topics I wanted to cover today. And it's funny, prior to recording, I joked about us, you're like, oh, we can go super long. We can do a 2-hour cast. And now looking at it, we are almost pushing 2 hours. So I guess
What,
we can,
really?
yep, we can, yeah, 1 hour 45 is what we got on the, yeah,
Oh wow.
on the timestamp right now. It's been awesome though. I absolutely love it, but we will be taking this in for a landing because it's getting late when we're
Oh yeah,
recording this.
we gotta get out of here. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. No, you're good. You're good. This has been lovely. No, thank you for the insight and kind of that deep dive. It was
Yeah,
great.
that was awesome.
Love it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Pizza. You were just sitting there. I'm sorry. We were just both done. Okay.
That's all good.
Love you so much, Pizza. Thank you for your
Definitely,
insights on
definitely
Timeless
been
and all the decks there that you're excited to
definitely
try.
learned.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
definitely
Ham,
learned
for
quite a
getting me
lot
excited about
from
Timeless as
cons.
well. That's really, really neat. And for
Absolutely.
geeking out over cons with me.
Oh, this is awesome because when it comes to cons, I know absolutely nothing. In Timeless, I just kind of like unexpectedly fell in love with it. So I knew we were gonna. I knew the three of us were gonna have things to talk about on all of these fronts. So yeah, no, this is lovely. But yeah, so before we go, could we go around the horn and tell folks where they can find you on the internet and what they can expect to find when they get there? So yeah, Headology, if you want to get things started, that'd be awesome.
Well, I'm in YouTube and Twitch currently most often. I also have, Twitter and social stuffs at HeadologyMagic. At Headology MTG, I think, is the Twitter, and then HeadologyMagic is for everything else.
Awesome.
The Twitch and the YouTube. And I usually stream as much as I can, as often as I can amongst teaching students. So that can mean that my schedule is quite irregular. So I'm sorry I don't have a regular schedule to tell you.
But
But YouTube's going well, so that's nice too.
so many people, when they say I stream as much as I can, they mean that they're going to stream for like a total of 6 hours during the week across like 3 different days. When you say that you stream as much as you can, like you mean it. Because I've had plenty of times where it's like, oh, Headology's on, cool. It's like, she's been on for like 13 hours. Like, what is happening?
I try.
Yeah.
I'm also stubborn. After
I
I get
respect
flooded,
that.
I'm like, I have to play again.
Well, and I've also come into those streams and you seem perfectly focused and totally chill. And it's like, have you actually been on this long? Anyway, it's wild. It's awesome. Yeah, and those streams are always a great time. So definitely highly recommend. Yeah. Yeah, and again, thank you so much for being here. Oh my goodness. And Pizza, where can people find you on the interwebs and what can they expect to find when they get there?
I've definitely been taking quite a bit of break from content creation lately. But you can definitely find me on twitch.tv/HollywoodPizza. You can find me on YouTube, PizzaBoxMTG, and hopefully pretty soon we'll be doing the tournaments again. So definitely be on the lookout for some announcements related to that.
Heck yeah. And dude, you've had a lot going on. It is all good. But yes, definitely looking forward to those kind of things. If you're not currently following Pizza Box on Twitter, I highly recommend you do. And if you're not familiar with the Pizza Box tournaments, they have been some of the finest like competitive Magic on Arena that is out there. And I'm not just saying that because I've been one of the go-to commentators for some time. But I'm honestly saying that because it's true. Like it's some of the best Magic you're going to find. And all right, I'm incredibly biased, but I do think the coverage is just pretty darn good. So, yeah, definitely come check those out. It's a blast. Yeah, rock on, man. Because yes,
yeah, I've got to check out those tournaments. Can you run a limited one at some point?
Yeah, it's definitely a thought.
All right, we might have to figure something out on that front.
Burner.
Yeah, love it.
That'd be so cool. I want in on that.
Yeah, but
So,
yeah,
that sounds awesome. And thank you so much for having us on.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, it's always a pleasure. And yeah, I'm Hamhawks42 on all the places, primarily Twitch and YouTube. I'm also on Twitter. Technically, I'm on LinkedIn, but that's with my legal name. I'm not going to share that whole thing with you. But anyway, yeah, I also haven't updated that in some time. People still message me trying to sell me stuff on there, though, because that's how that works. In any event, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I'm tired, so I'm talking about LinkedIn. Anyway, have a good night. Yeah, we definitely appreciate it. I don't know that we have a proper sign off. It's usually just, we'll see you on the next one, everybody.
Yeah.
Stay cheesy, y'all.
Oh, yeah.